Prologue. Maveth recalls her violent fall, plummeting through storm-darkened skies as wind roared past and the air was crushed from her lungs. The descent was sharp and brutal, like a stone slicing through the sky. As she fell, ominous whispers echoed around her. The sun will turn into darkness and the moon into blood and the heavens will shake, but do not be afraid. These haunting words marked a shift as Maveth, helpless in her descent, was consumed by shadows. Instead of death, she was reborn, delivered into the rancid, suffocating depths of darkness. This moment foreshadows her transformation and the heavy, prophetic tone that will shape the journey ahead. In Chapter 1, young Lestina is taken by the Pentacrux, a militant religious order in Presepsia that hunts so-called heretics and witches. Promised reunion with her mother, she follows Bishop Venable to the Monastery of the Holy Quintinity, unaware she's being led to witness her mother's execution. Before a crowd, her mother is accused of witchcraft and condemned to burn. As flames consume her, she screams a prophecy. The darkness will cover the land and all will burn, then vows she'll see Lestina again in another life. Ignoring her pleas, Bishop Venable brands Lestina with the church's symbol, marking her as both sinner and possession of the faith. Overcome by pain and grief, Lestina loses consciousness as her mother's screams fade, and the bishop's chilling words command her to remember the day. This brutal event sets Lestina's path of suffering, vengeance, and rebirth in motion. In Chapter 2, Farron Ravenshaw prepares to take a break from her job after her Aunt Nell's death and recent inheritance. While packing her office, she is approached by Detective Hines, a Chicago homicide investigator, who questions her about a strange symbol, an aberrant cross with a split base, found at a murder scene. The symbol triggers unsettling childhood memories and matches a birthmark on Farron's arm. Hines reveals that the symbol is tied to the Pentacrux, a religious cult her estranged father once wrote about before descending into psychosis. Hines shows her disturbing crime scene photos of a mutilated woman found locked in a room with no sign of forced entry. Though initially reluctant, Farron agrees to search her father's old notes for more information. As she examines the symbol again, her buried trauma and curiosity resurface, especially as it links to her father's belief that she is a harbinger tied to supernatural prophecy. In Chapter 3, Farron Ravenshaw visits Father Bain for confession, describing recurring dreams of a blood-red moon, mutilated bodies, and angels with dark wings. When she asks about the Pentacrux, the priest abruptly denies knowledge but admits someone else recently asked about them. Detective Hines. This deepens Farron's unease. Returning to her inherited home, she begins examining her late father's locked-away journals. These writings recount his obsession with an alternate realm called Nightshade, which he believed housed the fallen, dark-winged celestial beings, and lost souls in purgatory. Farron recalls her father's psychological decline following her mother's mysterious death and his failed attempt to drown her, which led to his institutionalization and eventual presumed suicide, though no body was found. Among the sketches, Farron finds a drawing of a black-winged man who matches the figure she saw watching her throughout childhood. As she reads more, her curiosity intensifies, sensing Nightshade might be real and deeply connected to her past. In Chapter 4, Lestina arrives at the monastery after being violently cleansed of supposed witchcraft, her skin scrubbed raw, hair cut short, and clothes burned. Under the harsh supervision of Pentash Mother, she is isolated from the other girls, denied freedom, and forced into a strict daily schedule of prayers and chores. Her punishment includes wearing a barbed metal belt, which she learns is used during periods of repentance called penitentials. She is forbidden from entering the woods, or the male clergy's quarters, with severe consequences for disobedience. Despite the cruelty, Lustina meets Pentash Aurelia and Pentash Maria, two other young women. Aurelia offers her kindness and reassurance, while Maria voices superstitions about Lestina being a witch. The chapter reveals that all the girls wear penitential belts during times of repentance, and Aurelia, who also carries her own shame, comforts Lestina, telling her that even she is not beyond forgiveness or the Holy Father's love. In Chapter 5, Farron dreams of entering the Cathedral of the Felician Sisters, where she discovers a Nightshade symbol and a chilling message: seek out Van Croy in Nightshade. She finds a black feather stained with dark fluid and two murdered nuns, then wakes in terror. Still shaken, she discovers a real black feather beneath her bed, identical to one from her childhood. A memory surfaces of presenting a similar feather to her father, who had warned her it belonged to the Dark Angels and forbade her from visiting the ruins of a nearby church where she'd found it. Now, in her aunt's house, Farron uses a magnifying glass to inspect the new feather and finds tiny symbols etched into it. Her father's notebook confirms they represent the 7 deadly sins, including one labeled libidine for lust. The evidence suggests the dark lore her father believed about angels and Nightshade might be real after all. In Chapter 6, Jericho, scarred and feared as the Reaper of Nightshade, navigates the gloomy, corrupted village of Nightshade, a realm where the souls of non-believers exist under fallen rule. Though blamed for recent mutilations, Jericho seeks a weapon of celestial steel, a blade capable of sending souls to ex nihilo, true obliteration. He acquires the blade from Van Croix, refusing payment in exchange for sparing the blacksmith and his wife. A brief encounter with a starving child shows that even the innocent fear Jericho's reputation. Later, Jericho meets Cassiel, one of 2 fallen angels he trusts. They investigate human remains found near Blackwater Mountain, and Cassiel warns that the villagers will blame Jericho again. The killings are nearing the cathedral grounds, raising Jericho's concern. Cassiel asks Jericho for mercy should he ever fall to the blade. The chapter reveals rising tensions, growing danger, and Jericho's fragile alliance with Rebel Fallen as something sinister hunts in the dark. In Chapter 7, Farron spends hours reading her father's journal, which describes a shadowy realm of strange creatures and haunted landscapes. She finds a torn page mentioning a man named Shiphius, who might help her father cross into Nightshade to find Van Croix before the next blood moon, warning that the Pentacrux will soon find Farron. The page includes a Chicago address for an apothecary. As Farron processes this, Detective Hines arrives unannounced, revealing another gruesome murder, a nun with her spine removed and replaced by barbed wire, her hands fused in prayer with a Silas belt. The crime scene includes a Nightshade symbol matching one from Farron's dream. When Hines becomes aggressive, demanding the feather she's hidden, her cat Camel scares him off with uncharacteristic hostility. That night, Farron hears banging in the walls, and Camel growls at something unseen. The chapter ends with Farron shaken, afraid, and more convinced the darkness is real. In Chapter 8, Listina travels with Bishop Venable to the Van Croix estate, unaware of the true purpose behind the visit. She learns that both Lady Perceptia and her son, Baron Van Croix, are afflicted, though the Baron's sickness is spiritual, requiring constant exorcisms. At the estate, Listina meets Dryston, a kind servant she mistakenly assumes is the Baron. While fetching water together, they encounter the real Baron Van Croix, cruel, powerful, and feared. His dark, commanding presence immediately unsettles Listina. After humiliating both her and Dryston, he crushes a gem that results in Dryston's punishment, revealing Dryston is the Baron's whipping boy, taking his punishments by proxy. Dryston warns Listina to stay away from the Baron, whom he describes as truly evil and dangerous, kept in check only by Bishop Venable's rituals. Listina begins to doubt the nature of good and evil, realizing danger may lie both within the church and the Van Croix family. In Chapter 9, Listina bravely defends Dryston from unjust punishment, revealing to Tothel and Bishop Venable that Baron Van Croix was the one who shattered the heirloom. Her defiance infuriates both the bishop and the Baron, and Venable accuses her of lying and inappropriate behavior with Dryston. Back at the estate carriage, the Baron taunts Listina with cryptic philosophical remarks about appearances and decay, warning her that not everything is as it seems. During the return to the monastery, Bishop Venable remains cold and silent. Once there, he punishes Listina by locking her in the morgue's pitch-black cell overnight. Terrified, she recalls Dryston's suffering and finds courage in her empathy for him. When released, she tells the bishop she no longer fears the dark. Furious, Venable accuses her of harboring evil like her mother and vows to exorcise it. Yet, Lady Perceptia has requested Listina's continued presence, securing her return visits to the Van Croix estate. In Chapter 10, Farron follows a mysterious pull to a shady, fog-filled alley in East Garfield Park, searching for a man named Shiphius, her only lead in uncovering the truth about her missing father, Augustus Ravenshaw. After witnessing a man seemingly fall to his death from a rooftop and vanish without a trace, Farron meets the enigmatic Shiphius, who confirms his connection to her father and introduces her to the concept of Nightshade, a shadow realm inhabited by the fallen and the souls of those who believe in neither heaven nor hell. Farron reveals a dream, a strange symbol on her arm, and a black feather as clues. Shiphius warns her of the dangers of Nightshade, its connection to a powerful feared figure named Van Croy, and the risk of memory loss for those who enter. Though intrigued, Shiphius refuses to help Farron travel there, insisting she abandon her quest and return to her normal life. In Chapter 11, Listina tends to Lady Precepsia after another of Bishop Venable's secret rituals. The ailing woman speaks kindly to her, recalling Listina's mother as a healer who once eased her pregnancy pains and lamenting her own fading life and fears for her son, Jericho Van Croy, whom she worries will be consumed by anger. After leaving the chamber, Listina encounters Jericho, who confronts her with mocking cruelty before questioning her beliefs. Their exchange turns intense when he forces her to admit her mother's innocence and the corruption of the church. Pushing her beyond fear, Jericho compels Listina to scream her hatred for Bishop Venable, who burned her mother alive. When she finally does, she's horrified by her outburst, but Jericho only smirks, whispering that her secret hatred is safe with him, hinting at a dark bond forming between them and his growing interest in her defiance. In Chapter 12, Jericho Van Croy wakes from another intense dream involving a mysterious woman with black hair and stardust eyes. Though she exists only in his fantasies, his desire for her eclipses all other women, leaving him sexually unsatisfied and increasingly obsessed. Despite a crowd of eager women waiting at his door, he rejects them coldly, including his former favorite, Evie. Jericho's fixation isolates him, but he refuses to indulge in meaningless encounters. Later, he retreats to his study where he drinks absinthe to quiet his hunger and refocus on unresolved vendettas. Housekeeper Anya interrupts to report that the third dog caretaker has gone missing and hints at growing concern about Jericho's behavior. She suspects a woman consumes his thoughts and warns that obsession and denial both lead to dangerous outcomes. Jericho remains evasive, but instructs Anya to find a new dog handler, hinting at rising internal tension and a dark turn ahead. In Chapter 13, Listina discovers an injured black fledgling with a lightning-shaped white streak on its feathers and decides to care for it despite Dryston's warning. Their conversation is interrupted by the young Baron, who demands she hand the bird over. Listina refuses, standing her ground even when the Baron threatens and physically confronts her. Their struggle escalates into a heated moment, culminating in a kiss that leaves Listina stunned and conflicted. Though she tries to protect the bird, the Baron eventually takes it, warning her of consequences if she resists again. Later, Listina lies in her room, consumed by thoughts of the kiss. She reflects on her mother's teachings about passion and realizes the Baron treats her as an equal, not with pity or condescension. Though she tells herself she despises him, Listina admits privately that she doesn't hate the Baron at all. In fact, she might even be drawn to him. In Chapter 14, Farron dreams of a faceless man with black wings who has haunted her since childhood. After waking from an intense sexual dream involving him, she's unsettled to find the Pentacrux symbol drawn on her window, from the inside. Fearing someone had broken in, she searches the house but finds no one. Desperate and afraid, she decides to return to Shiphius, who previously hinted at another realm called Nightshade. On the rooftop, Shiphius offers her a hallucinogenic tea made from the nightshade flower, warning her of the dangers and the price of truth. Farron drinks it and begins to hallucinate. When she sees her father's broken body below, alive and pleading, she jumps. Instead of dying, she falls through clouds and trees, crashing painfully into a freezing forest. Gasping for breath and shivering, she loses consciousness, having successfully crossed into Nightshade, where her journey for answers truly begins. In Chapter 15, Listina tends the garden near the cathedral and notices Lord Precepsia and the Baron, who rarely attend Mass, arriving. After locking eyes with the Baron, she's abruptly dragged by him into the forbidden undercroft beneath the church. There, he corners her, interrogates her about past kisses, and reveals a dangerous mix of desire, control, and anger. He gifts her a black bird she once rescued, now mysteriously healed, and demands a kiss in return. Their encounter grows increasingly intense, ending with the Baron declaring he will one day fully possess her. Before leaving, he warns her to remain hidden and promises the guards will leave after listening briefly. When the bishop arrives, Listina watches from a corner as Lord Percepcia, Dryston, clergy, and the Baron enter a forbidden chamber. Minutes later, screams erupt, agonizing and prolonged. To her horror, Listina realizes the screams are coming from the Baron himself, echoing the trauma of her mother's death. In Chapter 16, Listina is tending the garden when she sees Lord Percepcia and the Baron enter the cathedral, an unusual sight. Moments later, the Baron seizes her and drags her into the forbidden undercroft. There, he corners her, interrogates her about his past kiss, and warns her to stop spending time with Dryston. He presents her with the once wounded bird she had tried to save, now miraculously healed, and demands another kiss as payment. Their encounter grows physically intense, marked by controlling behavior and declarations of obsession. He instructs her to wait in hiding after he leaves, promising guards will come and go. Listina obeys and watches from the shadows as the bishop, clergy, Lord Percepcia, Dryston, and the Baron enter a forbidden chamber. Soon after, horrific screams pierce the air. Listina realizes the Baron is being tortured, his screams echoing the memory of her own mother's execution. The guards laugh as his agony continues. In Chapter 17, Listina meets the Baron at the river as he requested. They speak of the healed bird she released, and her curiosity leads to questions about what happened in the Undercroft. The Baron avoids clear answers, instead demanding intimate confessions from her. She admits she followed his earlier instructions and reflects on her confusing emotions. As they walk deeper into the woods, they encounter a seemingly lost old woman offering Listina a poisoned apple. The Baron kills her, revealing she was a non-human creature with fangs and a serpent tongue. He shows Listina the black worm-filled apple to prove the danger. The Baron leads her to a cliff, challenging her to face her fears and step into the unknown. She seemingly falls, but then finds herself unharmed, confused whether it was real. On returning, Dryston exposes her to Bishop Venable, resulting in punishment and lashings. Listina realizes that no virtue will redeem her in the eyes of the Church. In Chapter 18, Farron tends to the bump on her head and sees a black-winged humanoid flying toward the cathedral. Disturbed, she's interrupted by a pregnant servant girl named Aurelia, who brings her food. Aurelia reveals the other servants believe Farron is infected with bulio, a disfiguring disease, and that's why they avoided her. Aurelia admits she was abducted while doing laundry, then woke up at the Vanquois estate, pregnant by her captor. She doesn't know how she escaped or how she arrived, but believes she's allowed to stay out of Master Vanquois' reluctant tolerance. Farron shows her locket, revealing she came searching for her father, but Aurelia hasn't seen him. Aurelia warns that escape isn't allowed, and guard dogs patrol the grounds, though the estate claims residents are free to leave. She points out glowing flowers outside, said to bloom from the dead and believed to be cursed if picked. Before leaving, Aurelia pleads for Farron's help if she finds her father. In Chapter 19, during a Hallows Eve feast, the Baron sits seething as he learns Dryston informed Bishop Venable about his earlier encounter with Listina. Fearing Listina's punishment, the Baron's fury mounts. His black bird perches on his shoulder, unsettling Lord Percepcia, who demands the animal be removed. Tension escalates as the Baron openly insults his father, referencing his affair with his own sister and hinting at family disgrace. Enraged, Lord Percepcia orders Tothel to punish the Baron, but then grants his son permission to punish Drystan himself. Two guards seize Drystan and force him to kneel before the guests. Despite the public humiliation, Drystan remains defiant. The Baron, relishing his cousin's shame, whispers that the retaliation will be worth the price. Though he knows Drystan will eventually seek revenge, the Baron views this as justified punishment for Drystan's betrayal, and a form of justice for what Listina may have endured. In Chapter 20, Jericho waits on a rooftop in Nightshade, accompanied by his raven cicatrix, watching a Cambion violently murder a young boy. Arriving too late to save the child, Jericho confronts the killer, reads his traumatic past, and offers a dark pact. He will spare the Cambion's life if he hunts down and kills the men who abused him, instead of harming more boys. To seal the deal, Jericho carves his sigil into the man's flesh, binding him by blood oath. Afterward, Jericho encounters a grotesque intertui named Tardes, who offers information about Jericho's long-hunted enemy, Virgil. Tardes says Virgil will attend an upcoming Hallow Harvest Ball hosted by Barchiel and offers to add Jericho, disguised and masked, to the guest list under the name Havanash. Tardes demands a female companion in return. Jericho agrees to the exchange, plotting his revenge against Virgil while navigating Nightshade's dangerous supernatural underworld. In Chapter 21, Farron awakens disoriented in a luxurious room, having passed out after drinking wine. Late at night, she overhears angry voices and watches as a powerful, imposing man, Van Croy, approaches her room. She recognizes him by his eye patch, silver tattoos, and cold, commanding presence. Sensing his approach, she hides behind the door, narrowly avoiding discovery when Anya distracts him. Van Croy detects an unusual scent but leaves without identifying her. The next morning, Anya brings Farron breakfast and suggests taking her back to town. Farron, driven by unanswered questions about her father's connection to Van Croy and her belief that clues lie here, asks to stay. Anya hesitantly agrees if Farron helps in the garden. Farron requests a meeting with Van Croy, but Anya warns of his dislike for unexpected guests and eye contact. Finally, Farron is told her original clothes were discarded, and she's issued a servant's uniform, symbolizing her deeper entanglement in Van Croy's world. In Chapter 22, Farron anxiously awaits word from Anya, only to witness from her window Jesper, bloodied and terrified, being hunted and mauled by one of Van Croy's dogs. She shouts to warn him, but the dog drags him away. When Van Croy confronts her moments later, Farron pleads for help, but he coldly dismisses her concerns and demands she leave. Farron defies him until Anya intervenes and pulls her away. Anya then reveals that Jesper was accused of attacking a teenage girl and claims the dogs can sense evil. Escorted off the estate, Farron is suddenly surrounded by the 3 aggressive dogs. One, Cerberus, attacks her but stops upon discovering her birthmark. He sniffs and licks it, calming completely. The dogs unexpectedly bond with her, something no other outsider has achieved. Anya, shocked, declares Farron the new caretaker. As Van Croy silently watches from the window, Farron agrees to stay, still unsure of her safety but determined to uncover the truth. In Chapter 23, Jericho, Van Croy, watches from his window as Farron plays fearlessly with his attack dogs, something no one but he has ever done. Anya urges him to let her stay, claiming she's different, and Jericho reluctantly agrees, ordering her to care for the dogs under strict supervision. When Anya reveals Farron's name, Jericho recognizes it from years earlier. A dying man had given him a pocket watch engraved with, "Let all that you do be done with love, Farron," begging him to protect his daughter. Jericho realizes this woman is the same person from his dreams and that her presence at the cathedral is no coincidence. Though drawn to her, he distrusts her motives. Moments later, Remy reports that their comrade Cassiel is missing, leaving behind only a blood-stained sigil. Jericho admits he was recently attacked by a humanoid creature, orders a search with Cerberus' help, and suspects darker forces are crossing into their realm. In Chapter 24, Lestina is dragged into the cathedral undercroft by Jericho, who demands to know how she was punished for their previous tryst. Despite her protests, he insists on seeing her scars, but when she challenges his intentions, he reveals his own back, marred by countless wounds from cruel experiments. He leads her into a torture chamber and explains the scars are penance for his existence, inflicted by those who fear what they don't understand. Jericho learns Lestina is branded with the Pentacrux symbol, like the one on the door, and she admits her mother was executed as a witch. Curious about Jericho's suffering, Lestina asks to experience it. He chains her, but at the last moment chooses tenderness over violence, telling her he could never harm her. Instead, he confesses his growing feelings and the torment of knowing she can never truly belong to him, swearing that thoughts of her will be his only comfort in future punishment. In Chapter 25, Farron is shown around the cathedral by Anya, who leads her through hidden chambers, a rebuilt organ room, and a turret library filled with ancient books. Anya warns her to avoid the bell tower and undercroft, citing safety and strange rumors. At the kitchen, Farron meets the staff, who treat her with open hostility until Anya publicly defends her. Later, Farron sees Van Croy swimming nude in a secluded grotto, and is caught watching him. At the stables, Farron is assigned to feed the massive dogs raw meat, learning the task involves butchering animal carcasses. She struggles through it and disposes of the remains in a foul-smelling burn pit. There, she encounters a mysterious, intimidating man who calls himself Security. He taunts her, implying she narrowly escaped death and backs her toward the pit before kissing her hand and leaving. Farron begins to suspect The people around her are just as dangerous as the setting. In Chapter 26, Lestina is startled by Baron Van Croy, who secretly leads her to a hidden room filled with mirrors. There, she discovers his bruised face, the result of retaliation against Dryston. Their conversation turns intimate as the Baron confesses his obsession with her and the risks they face if discovered. Though overcome with desire, Lestina ultimately resists going further. He instructs her to meet him in the woods later. That evening, Lestina races through the forest and hides in a cave, where the Baron finds her. They flirt and joke, particularly about a bird he claims helped track her. Lestina teases him about past lovers, but reveals she has only known feline affection, referring to her pet. Their playful tension builds until a bird warns them of someone approaching. Moments later, a servant arrives, delivering urgent news about the Baron's mother, prompting Jericho to leave immediately with visible concern. In Chapter 27, Farron prepares for dinner in an outdated Victorian dress that conceals her bruises. She notices Van Croy on the roof and approaches, prompting a tense conversation. He returns her lost locket using his raven's cicatrix and denies knowing her father or the group Pentacrux, though his reaction suggests otherwise. Farron resolves to earn his trust over time. When her necklace clasp fails, Van Croy fastens it, brushing against her neck, leaving her flustered. She joins Aurelia for a lavish dinner and learns more about the household. Aurelia shares gossip about Remy, Van Croy's mysterious right-hand man, and hints at disturbing rumors surrounding Van Croy's private activities. She also reveals she sleeps in the Undercroft, which Anya had forbidden Farron from entering. Their conversation reveals Van Croy's pet raven, Cicatrix, may actually speak, and that some staff fear him while others are drawn to him. Farron remains both intrigued and wary. In Chapter 28, Lestina observes Baron Van Croy playing the cathedral's organ, feeling the grief in his music. After the piece ends, they talk, and he reveals resentment toward his father for sending him to war and failing to save his dying mother. Lestina tries to comfort him, sharing her own experience of growing up fatherless and losing her mother, but Van Croy lashes out, calling her and her mother witches. His grief spirals into rage, and when Lestina challenges him, he grabs her, declaring she belongs to him. She breaks free, refusing to be anyone's possession. Their confrontation is interrupted by a Pentash, who arrives with a message that his father and Bishop Venable wish to speak with him. Van Croy quickly regains composure, lying that Lestina had only been comforting him. Deeply hurt, Lestina realizes her presence may have worsened his grief and watches him leave with a sense of sorrow and defeat. In Chapter 29, Farron is kept awake by a tapping branch and wanders the cathedral seeking solace in the library. Along the way, she's drawn by haunting organ music and discovers Van Croy playing alone. Hiding behind a pillar, she watches until he addresses her directly, aware of her presence. They talk, and she compliments his playing. Learning the piece is titled Prophetia. Their conversation turns tense when he accuses her of innocence and naivety, dismissing her presence as fantasy-driven. Farron defends herself, but Van Croy remains sarcastic and guarded, implying he doesn't trust her motives for being at the cathedral. Farron admits she doesn't fully understand what brought her there, but believes something beyond her control led her. Van Croy cryptically warns her to stay away from him if she values her soul. Despite the tension, their conversation reveals a mutual curiosity, and Farron leaves with more questions about his intentions and her own. In Chapter 30, Farron awakens in the library after falling asleep and rushes to the stables, where she's scolded by Garrick for being late. After feeding the dogs, she takes them for a walk and discovers a strange golden insect and a mysterious flower near the hedge maze. Inside the maze, she encounters Jesper, the former caretaker presumed dead, badly injured and rambling about the sun, blood, and fire. He dies in front of her, but a terrifying, inhuman creature emerges and devours his body. Panicked, Farron runs through the maze, lost and terrified, until Remy, also wounded by the creature, grabs her ankle and emerges from the hedge. Together they escape and are reunited with the dogs. At the maze's exit, Van Croy appears. Farron tells him about the attack, and Remy confirms her story. Van Croy orders Farron to meet him in his office after she helps Remy treat his injuries. Something dark now stalks the grounds. In Chapter 31, Farron tends to Remy's wounds, noticing how unnaturally dark and thick his blood appears. Remy flirts, but Farron remains focused and shows him a locket of her father, Augustus Ravenshaw. Though Remy hasn't seen him, he promises to ask around. Farron then meets with Van Croy in his office. He confirms no trace of the creature or Jesper was found, but he believes her story. As they speak, Farron experiences an overwhelming, almost supernatural attraction to Vanquois, triggered by his scent and presence. She confesses that a Cambion helped her cross over to Nightshade using tea. Vanquois reveals her scent is unusual, alive, and possibly attracting dark entities. When she presents sketches of strange symbols and recounts a prophetic dream involving murdered nuns, Vanquois admits to having briefly met her father, who gave him a timepiece. He warns her the Pentacrux no longer exists, but that by coming to him, she may be in grave danger. In Chapter 32, Lustina lies awake after a painful argument with Jericho, but he soon appears at her window, apologizing and asking her to come with him. She climbs down the trellis with his help, and they flee into the forest together. There, Jericho confesses that the church believes he is possessed, and he's undergone secret exorcisms. He reveals that he was born with a darkness inside him, one his mother confirmed on her deathbed. Jericho believes he and Lustina are spiritually connected, that she carries a piece of his soul. He warns that her presence awakens powerful cravings in him. Lustina admits she hears her mother's voice, and he explains that she is no longer bound to the church, declaring himself her protector, sanctuary, and salvation. As they solidify their emotional and spiritual bond, Lustina chooses him, vowing to be his, while he promises loyalty and confesses he would destroy the world for her. In Chapter 33, Jericho watches Farron through his window, conflicted by his growing obsession with her. He reflects on their recent interaction in his office, noting her unusual eyes and the magnetic pull he feels toward her. Recalling a warning from Farron's father, "You must remember to protect her," Jericho becomes more unsettled, unsure what she needs protection from. When Remy enters, they discuss Farron, confirming she crossed over from the mortal realm. Jericho reveals she received a feather marked with a symbol tied to Cassiel, a powerful being. The symbol alarms Remy, who hasn't heard of Cassiel or the ancient group Pentacrux in centuries. Believing Farron is being targeted, Jericho orders Remy to investigate her life back in Chicago, especially any connection to Cassiel. He warns Remy to keep his distance from Farron, making it clear she is under his protection. Jericho's fixation intensifies, and Farron's presence begins unraveling long-buried secrets. In Chapter 34, Lustina hangs laundry in the garden and spots Jericho entering the church. Soon after, he pulls her into the undercroft, where he reveals that the clergy are distracted by a visiting friar from Rome named Felix. Relieved that Jericho will avoid further experiments, Lustina enjoys their brief time together before they part ways. Afterward, she's approached by Dristan, who insists on speaking privately. Despite her reluctance, Lustina follows him into a nearby room where his apology turns violent. He attempts to assault her, taunting her about her affair with Jericho and threatening to accuse her of seduction if she resists. Lustina fights back, screaming for help until Jericho bursts in, furious. She flees the room as he confronts Dristan. Behind her, the sound of Jericho's violent retribution echoes through the undercroft, leaving Lustina shaken and tearful, aware that something irrevocable has changed between them all. In Chapter 35, Farron spies on Vanquois training his dogs with unnerving discipline. After a brief exchange of banter, she convinces him to join her in careless frolicking, leading to a chase through the woods with the dogs. Their flirtation deepens as they discuss their pasts, and Vanquois' superhuman abilities become clear when he throws a stick impossibly far. Farron suspects he isn't human, possibly one of the fallen, but he gives no clear answer. Despite his warnings, she claims she's not afraid, though he senses otherwise. Together, they test her own hidden strength, enhanced under his guidance, suggesting a mysterious connection. As they talk, Vanquois explains the concept of Eshra, echoes of past lives in Nightshade, which may explain her feelings of déjà vu. Their moment is interrupted by a terrifying screech from the forest. Vanquois orders her to flee to the cathedral with the dogs, insisting she not return, while he prepares to confront whatever's coming alone. In Chapter 36, Jericho prepares for battle at the forest's edge, shedding his clothes to protect them and carrying a celestial steel dagger. As night falls, he confirms Farron has returned safely to the cathedral and takes flight using his wings. Spotting a black figure moving below, he intercepts it near a cliff leading to the Vale, the portal between planes. He wounds the creature twice, then uses his power to manipulate air, freezing it mid-charge. On close inspection, Jericho discovers the figure is Cassiel, a once powerful being now mutilated, with wings severed and body deformed. He pleads with the creature to reveal what happened, but Cassiel can't communicate clearly. When Jericho sees Cassiel's identifying sigil, he realizes who it is and feels a deep sadness. At Cassiel's silent nod, Jericho speaks a farewell in Prescuchian and mercifully kills him. Cassiel's eyes soften before flames consume his body, leaving Jericho haunted by the loss of his old friend. In Chapter 37, Farron paces the hallway, overwhelmed with guilt and worry after Vanquois ventures alone into the dangerous woods. Though he ordered her not to alert anyone, she questions her decision, fearing she'd be to blame if he were injured, or worse. Struggling with helplessness, she considers telling Anya in case he needs aid. As she debates her next move, the sound of a door creaking draws her to the banister. Relief washes over her as Vanquois enters the house unharmed. Their eyes meet, and though neither speaks, the intensity of the moment reveals Farron's deep concern and unexpected emotional attachment. Embarrassed, she retreats to her room, shaken by how much his safe return meant to her. In Chapter 38, Farron reflects on her memories, realizing she still vividly recalls her past life despite Nightshade's rumored memory-fading effect. Tormented by the looming expectation to leap off a deadly cliff to return home, she struggles with anxiety and mounting urgency to uncover more about her father. When she learns he had indeed arrived at Blackwater, she convinces Vanquois to let her accompany him to a bookstore in town. During the trip, they exchange meaningful personal revelations, including Vanquois' role as a soul broker and his suspicion that a fallen creature, once someone he knew, was protecting her. At the bookshop, Farron encounters a mysterious woman named Catriona who gives her an ancient book and unnervingly knows her name. Later, the staff deny any knowledge of Catriona or a third floor. Farron finds a flyer for a secretive ball, prompting her to push for an invitation, which Vanquois refuses, despite hints of growing feelings between them. In Chapter 39, Bishop Venable addresses a gathered crowd at the monastery accusing someone of murdering the missing boy, Drysten. Though Lestina knows what she witnessed in the Undercroft the night Drysten disappeared, she remains silent under pressure. The bishop intensifies scrutiny on her, and the villagers begin to turn against her. Later, while folding laundry, Lestina confides in her kind friend Pentash Aurelia about the disturbing room beneath the monastery. She leads Aurelia, and eventually Maria, to the forbidden Undercroft chamber, where chains, whips, and torture instruments line the walls. Aurelia, horrified, realizes this is where Bishop Venable has been conducting secret experiments, possibly involving the Baron. Fearing the Pentash mother is also complicit, Aurelia proposes involving Friar Felix, who will soon return to Rome and can alert the Pope. They hope his influence can stop the horrors within the monastery before more tragedy unfolds. Lestina finds comfort in finally sharing the secret. In Chapter 40, Farron, unable to sleep, reads a mysterious book about Lestina, a girl raised by the church after her mother was executed for witchcraft. Lestina's complicated relationship with a cruel baron gradually shifts into affection. Farron notes eerie similarities between the characters and people around her, including Van Croy. Her conversation with Jericho reveals a growing intimacy and his dreams of a faceless woman ending when Farron arrived. Jericho explains a cursed blade, tied to an ancient infection called the Scourge, which creates controllable beasts known as Elatum. Later, Aurelia warns Farron that the Pentacrux plans to drown her, then suffers a fatal labor, begging Farron to take her baby, Miriam, to safety. As Aurelia dies, staff members reveal themselves as demonic entities. Farron flees to the Nightshade field, hoping to escape Nightshade by jumping off a cliff with a flower, but drops it mid-fall. Just before impact, she's caught by a figure with raven wings, Jericho. In Chapter 41, Farron awakens in her bed, uncertain if the terrifying events with Aurelia and the demonic staff were real. She vividly remembers jumping off the cliff, but now questions everything, especially when Anya enters and claims Aurelia never existed. Anya insists Farron has dined alone since arriving, implying the pregnancy, attack, and even Dr. Venable are fabrications. Farron panics, but there's no physical evidence, no blood, no sign of Aurelia. As migraines and dizziness overwhelm her, memories from her real life, Aunt Nell, her cat Camille, anchor her identity, reminding her she isn't crazy. Still, she can't recall basic details about Aurelia, like her eye color or voice. Anya gives her the room key, honoring Farron's demand not to be locked in. Later, Farron examines the Lestina book and notices the girl's once smudged face is now eerily clear. It's her own face. Worse, Aurelia appears beside her in the illustration, confirming something sinister and supernatural is at play. In Chapter 42, Lestina picks berries for the Reverend Mother but hears screams and finds young Agnes drowning in the river. She rescues her, but Agnes responds with hostility, calling Lestina a witch and storming off. Saddened, Lestina notices a rich, spicy scent in the air and follows it to a mysterious forest cottage she's never seen before. There she meets a regal woman named Camille, a sibyl who claims to have known Lestina's mother and speaks in riddles about prophecy, sacrifice, and darkness. Camille tells the tale of the Pentad blood moons and a dark-winged creature who fell in love with a girl destined for sacrifice, hinting that Lestina is that girl. She warns Lestina that she's in danger, that someone selfish is luring her toward darkness. After drinking Camille's broth, Lestina blacks out and awakens alone in the forest. The cottage and Camille are gone. Only the fading sunset remains, leaving Lestina shaken and uncertain. In Chapter 43, Farron is shaken after discovering her cat's name, Camille, and her own likeness in an ancient book beside a woman named Aurelia. Vanquois visits, and their tense conversation reveals Nightshade is not purgatory, but a realm where souls trapped in denial are stuck. Vanquois claims Farron's body cannot survive travel between realms and warns of a fate called ex nihilo, a void of nothingness if she cannot return. Farron insists she must go back and demands answers about her father and the strange coincidences she's uncovered. She also confronts Vanquois about their connection and propositions him in exchange for being her companion to the secretive Hallows Harvest Ball. He refuses. Later, Farron apologizes to Anya and asks for help, obtaining a woodland-themed costume to infiltrate the ball. Anya reluctantly agrees. Farron then devises a risky plan, sneaking into the ball hidden inside the trunk of Vanquois' carriage. In Chapter 44, Lestina is punished for tardiness and forced to do chores in the cold. Baron Jericho approaches her with a shocking revelation. The bishop has offered to legitimize their union, baptism and marriage, in exchange for Jericho's loyalty. Jericho proposes to Lestina, expressing his love and disdain for noble obligations. Though wary, Lestina agrees. Jericho takes her to a hidden hot spring, where their physical and emotional bond deepens. He reveals his plan to kill Bishop Venable, who poisoned his mother, and confesses his true identity, a half-angel, half-demon, being called a sentinel. His massive black wings confirm his supernatural origin. Despite her initial shock, Lestina accepts him. Jericho refuses her offer to help assassinate the bishop, fearing for her safety. Instead, he instructs her to wait in the woods under the Raven's protection. They promise to reunite after his mission. Their love deepens as they plan to escape together, leaving behind judgment and violence. In Chapter 45, Farron discovers a torn scrap of fabric caught on a rocky outcrop near the cliffside, identical to the uniform worn by Blackwater's staff and the same dress she wore the night she tried to escape. The fabric confirms her memory. She truly had fallen from the cliff, and it wasn't just a dream. The sound of tearing fabric and the vivid recollection of losing her footing align with this physical evidence. Most importantly, the discovery reaffirms that Vanquois did, in fact, catch her before she plummeted to her death. This revelation blurs the line between fantasy and reality even further for Farron and strengthens her belief in her experiences within Nightshade. In Chapter 46, Farron prepares for the Hallows Harvest Ball in an elaborate, attention-grabbing celestial blue fairy costume selected by Anya. Despite her intent to go unnoticed, she's forced to hide in the carriage trunk to sneak into the ball. After a panicked, near-suffocating ride, she's discovered by a furious Vanquois, but convinces him to let her attend. The ball is extravagant, filled with woodland-themed guests and ominous undertones. Farron spots Alicia, the murder victim she's come to find, and initiates a conversation. Alicia begins to recall disturbing memories of her murder, but is confused and afraid. Their exchange is interrupted by Virgil, Alicia's shady manager, who takes her away. Farron follows into the woods, becomes lost, and meets a disfigured man named Tardes. He recognizes she's alive and offers to help her find nightshade flowers in exchange for the simple touch of living skin. Farron agrees, continuing her pursuit of answers and escape. In Chapter 47, Jericho follows Virgil, a fallen angel, to a secluded cottage and confronts him with a celestial blade capable of true destruction. Virgil reveals that Jericho once made a deal to escape Nightshade in exchange for souls, but broke it after falling in love with a human girl, Farron. Jericho doesn't remember her due to manipulated memories, but Virgil insists she is his soulmate and part of a prophecy tied to the blood moon. Before Jericho can kill him, Virgil slits his own throat, taunting him to remember Farron. Jericho finishes him off with a sword strike, reducing him to ash. Jericho then finds Farron in danger from Tardes, who claims she was promised to him. After killing Tardes, Jericho carries a drugged and disoriented Farron away. As they hide, he overhears a drug called Rapture being distributed. When Farron yells, he kisses her to silence her, triggering memories of their past connection. In Chapter 48, Listina prepares to flee the monastery but is drawn to the bell tower by strange clanging sounds. There she finds Pentash Maria and Aurelia hanged, their deaths staged to resemble suicide. Horrified, she flees into the woods, guided by a flock of ravens, but is intercepted by the Pentash mother, a Pentrosh, and villagers. Dragged to the river under the pretense of baptism, she's forced toward Bishop Venable. Though terrified, Listina strikes the Pentash mother and attempts to escape, but is violently beaten and humiliated by the mob. Reaching the bishop, she scratches his face in defiance before being overpowered. As he performs the baptism ritual, Listina realizes she is to be executed like the outspoken women before her, her mother, Maria, Aurelia, and Lady Percepcia. With no rescue in sight, she prays to Jericho and clings to the memory of love as the bishop forces her under the water beneath the blood-red moon. In Chapter 49, Jericho ambushes the bishop's caravan en route to Rome, killing the guards to stage a raid. But when he opens the carriage, he finds Felix inside, tortured and gagged. Before dying from an arrow, Felix pleads with Jericho to save Listina. Jericho flies back to Percepcia and finds Listina drowned at the river. Devastated, he tries desperately to revive her, but she remains lifeless. Overwhelmed by grief, Jericho vows revenge. He unleashes his power in a storm of lightning and fire, destroying the monastery and village, killing soldiers and innocents alike. Confronting the bishop, Jericho demands to know why Listina was killed. The bishop reveals she is cursed to die and be reborn every blood moon as a sacrifice, doomed to forget her past lives. After torturing the bishop, Jericho crucifies him. As the sentinels approach, Jericho returns to Listina's body for a final goodbye, vowing to find her again in the next life. In Chapter 50, Jericho carries the unconscious Farron to her bed after she overdoses on a drug. As he watches her sleep, he notices a birthmark on her arm, one that glows with a hidden sigil when touched. The phrase inscribed, "Eternal love, unbidden and unbound, once lost and twice found," awakens a surge of vivid memories from Jericho's past. Moments with Listina, her death, his vengeance, and the prophecy that she would be reborn again and again. As the memories rush back, Jericho realizes the truth. Farron is Listina reincarnated. Stunned, he studies her sleeping face and sees the same features he once loved. Though guilt and disbelief threaten to undo him, the pain of losing her is overwhelmed by the hope of having her again. Calling her name aloud, he vows that nothing will take her from him this time, no matter the cost. Listina has returned, and Jericho's heart beats again. In Chapter 51, Jericho recounts events from 10 years earlier when he watched over a young Farron, his reincarnated love, Lustina. Though tempted to take her, he waited. One day, he intervened when Farron's father, possessed by the fallen angel Virgil, attempted to drown her. Jericho fought Augustus, but Virgil escaped with Farron. Outside, Jericho saved her and battled Virgil, but their fight was interrupted by the arrival of 3 sentinels, divine enforcers. Adamus, their leader, offered Jericho a devastating ultimatum: walk away and lose all memory of Listina, or keep his memories and watch her die. As Virgil fired an arrow at Farron, Jericho chose sacrifice, diving in front of it. The celestial arrow struck his eye but did not kill him. Adamus declared he had chosen wisely. The chapter ends with Jericho consumed by pain and darkness, having given everything to protect Listina once more. In Chapter 52, Farron wakes up with a pounding headache and finds Jericho Van Croix sitting silently in her room. Mortified by hazy memories from the previous night, she questions him about their encounter, the singer at the harvest ball, and the symbol on her arm. Jericho reveals that her birthmark glows with a sigil identical to one of his, confirming her identity as the reincarnation of Lestina. He leads her to a hidden room filled with hundreds of obsessive portraits of her from past lives. Jericho confesses he made a Faustian deal with the Fallen to return to her, planning to take her once she was old enough. Farron is horrified, but he refuses to let her go. He offers a coin that guarantees safe return to the human realm, but only once her father is found. Later, Anya warns Farron of Jericho's erratic behavior. Disturbed by resurfacing memories, Farron resolves to confront him that evening. In Chapter 53, Farron is left shaken and furious after discovering Jericho's secret portrait room and the truth about her past life as Lestina. She storms away and finds solace in Anya, who helps her calm down and reassures her that she's not crazy. As Farron tries to piece together her fragmented memories, she starts to recall flashes from past lives, her voice, laughter, and face intertwined with Jericho's. Later, Van Croy finds her and explains his obsession, declaring that she was his eternal love and that she has always returned to him across lifetimes. He admits he made a deal to find her again and now plans to keep her from being taken. Farron demands to be returned home, but Jericho warns her that the Sentinels might already be hunting them both. The tension escalates as Farron realizes she may be caught in a war far older and more personal than she ever imagined. In Chapter 54, Farron and Jericho share an intimate moment in a black quartz bath carved from Blackwater rock. As she examines his glowing tattoos, each one marking a life he's taken, she is overwhelmed by the depth of his past and the weight of his sins, including destroying an entire city for Lestina. Jericho confesses he cannot return to her world until he atones for those sins, though he admits he's unsure what redemption looks like. Farron suggests they leave together, but Jericho insists the Sentinels still watch him and any transgression would jeopardize them both. Despite her doubts about being Lestina reborn, he insists she's the only one he's ever loved. Farron, insecure about her ordinary life, admits she's never truly loved before. Jericho declares his obsessive devotion and vows to claim her entirely. Their conversation ends with him dismissing redemption in favor of eternal damnation, so long as it means staying with her. In Chapter 55, Jericho takes Farron into the snowy woods after days spent together in isolation. There, he introduces her to Cicatrix, a raven with whom he shares a deep, wordless bond. Using her movements, Farron commands the birds in a display of synchronicity, symbolizing the growing connection between her and Jericho. Their intimate bond deepens, but Farron continues to struggle with doubts about her worth and fears that Jericho only loves her because he believes she is Lestina reincarnated. He assures her his love stems from centuries of devotion, even admitting he was prepared to never see her again. Later, Farron encounters Evie berating Garrick for taking a picture frame. The frame held a page of personal affirmations about Garrick's lost wife. Touched by his pain and devotion, Farron offers him hope. The chapter ends with her reflecting on fate and beginning to accept the impossible events surrounding her rebirth and presence in Nightshade. In Chapter 56, Jericho sends his raven Cicatrix and others to search for Farron's father. He is interrupted by Evie, a jealous housekeeper, who reports a missing staff member, Danielle, last seen with Remy. Jericho suspects Remy's fallen nature might be involved, but dismisses Evie's veiled threats and manipulations, warning her never to interfere with Farron. Later, Jericho finds Farron making a handmade picture frame for Garrick, touched by her kindness. Their conversation turns serious as Farron questions the fate of Dryston. Jericho reveals he spared Dryston's life, despite his crimes, due to a promise to his mother. Dryston was also a Cambion, like Jericho, though he concealed it. Jericho admits he destroyed Perceptia upon discovering his true power. Farron learns more about the Fallen and Jericho's past, including his escape with help from Cassiel and Remy. The chapter ends with Farron initiating a kiss, claiming what she wants, solidifying their emotional connection. In Chapter 57, Farron brings a handmade picture frame to Garrick's cabin, only to find him missing. The dogs lead her to the forest's edge, where she discovers Garrick's fiddler hat, a suicide note marked, "I am nothing," and a pile of ashes beside a shard of celestial steel. Remy arrives, confirming Garrick's death and revealing he witnessed it. Farron blames Evie's cruelty for triggering Garrick's suicide. Remy shocks her by producing a string folded into an infinity symbol, one her father used to leave as a sign. He found it at her old house, suggesting her father may still be alive. Later, Farron reflects on whether to stay in Nightshade or search for her father. She asks Jericho about the phrase Dominus Vigilans Nas, which he explains is the Pentacrux's creed, fanatics hunting her reincarnated soul. Jericho warns her not to leave Nightshade and forbids further contact with Remy, fearing the Pentacrux will kill her. In Chapter 58, Farron processes the aftermath of Garrick's death, believing he used celestial steel to end his life. Though Remy confirms it, Farron's anger grows, especially when she suspects Evie pushed Garrick emotionally to the edge. Remy then reveals he found a string shaped into an infinity symbol at Farron's home, an old sign from her father, suggesting he may still be alive. This reignites her hope. Back in her room, Farron reflects on the symbol and hears the mysterious phrase Dominus Vigilans, which triggers memories of both Alicia and Father Bane saying it. Jericho explains it is the motto of the Pentacrux, a group of zealots who see her as a threat tied to prophecy. Farron reveals Remy is looking for her father and possibly found a lead. Jericho is angry but agrees not to interfere, though he forbids her from seeing Remy or returning to the mortal realm, warning it would make her vulnerable to the Pentacrux. In Chapter 59, Jericho summons Remy to confront him about kissing Farron. Though outwardly calm, Jericho's fury simmers beneath the surface. He questions Remy about a missing maid, Danielle, but Remy deflects, visibly shaken and evasive. Jericho then reveals that all his memories have returned and violently threatens Remy to stay away from Farron. He assigns Remy to investigate the phrase Dominus Vigilans, which Farron remembered from her time in the mortal realm, believing it to be connected to the Pentacrux. Later, Jericho returns to find Evie naked in Farron's room and violently demands Farron's whereabouts. Sensing something is wrong, he leaps from a window and flies to the sea, where he sees Remy fleeing with an unconscious Farron in his arms, pursued by ravens. Despite Jericho's attempt to stop them, Remy dives into a supernatural vortex in the water and vanishes with Farron, leaving Jericho unable to follow and devastated. In Chapter 60, Farron awakens disoriented in modern-day Chicago after Remy rescues her from the sea and brings her back to the mortal realm. She realizes she's not only back in her world, but also still alive in her original timeline. Remy admits he made a deal with the Pentacrux to trade Farron for her father's freedom, but insists he never intended to follow through. Suspicious, Farron reluctantly agrees to go along with his plan, which involves meeting a contact at the Shining Star Motel. Ironically, the site of a known murder. Remy tries to keep up appearances with flirtatious antics, but Farron remains focused. Once inside the motel room, Detective Hines arrives and shoots Remy with a celestial steel bullet, incapacitating but not killing him. Hines then reveals himself as Dryston, someone from Farron's mysterious past, calling her Listina and setting the stage for a deeper confrontation tied to her forgotten identity. In Chapter 61, Jericho infiltrates Bishop Venable's mansion, formerly Barkiel, seeking answers about Farron's fate and the Pentacrux's plan. Discovering Barkiel is now a Dodra, a branded slave from the Infernal Lands, Jericho confronts him with a celestial steel blade. Barkiel reveals he retains all memories from his life and welcomes his punishment, claiming Jericho granted him eternal life. When Jericho demands to know Pentacrux's intent, Barkiel reveals Dryston plans to impregnate Farron, Listina Reborn, as a cruel method of vengeance. Dryston, once trapped in Ex Nihilo, escaped by using a sigil transmitted through Barkiel in a dream. He intends to trade Farron to a sentinel to gain protection, since his own power is weakened. Jericho, furious and helpless due to his imprisonment in Nightshade, realizes that returning to Farron could risk her life. Barkiel offers a cryptic solution, a path back to the earthly realm, but it requires Jericho to sacrifice his wings. In Chapter 62, Farron is dragged into a church basement by Dryston and Pentacrux acolytes. Dryston reveals her father decoded an ancient sigil that resurrected him from Ex Nihilo, unknowingly summoned through years of obsession with Farron's birthmark. Dryston claims her mother's death was divine punishment, and her father now hides in Nightshade with a crucial translation, the Omni, angelic power that can restore Dryston's wings. Dryston plans to trade Farron to a powerful angel to be impregnated, breaking her curse and hurting Jericho. He reveals it was he who maimed Cassiel and transformed him into an Alatum. Farron discovers Remy crucified and tortured, his wings brutally removed and cursed, transforming him into a monstrous Alatum. Dryston's own wings are a grotesque patchwork of human remains harvested from his victims. Father Bane, Farron's childhood priest, is revealed as an accomplice. Dryston declares Farron's capture part of a greater plan to test Jericho's worthiness orchestrated by unknown higher powers. In Chapter 63, Farron awakens strapped to a sacrificial altar as Father Bane prepares her for a ritual. Remy, now a tortured Aladdin, screams in agony elsewhere. Bane reveals Remy is being tested to join the Pentacrux. Just as Bane prepares to violate Farron, a hooded figure kills him violently. It's Jericho, who possessed the body of one of Bane's victims to cross into the mortal realm. Jericho frees Farron and they flee, intending to lure Dryston back to Nightshade to kill him. On the church rooftop, they're attacked by Dryston, soldiers, and a horde of Aladdin. Farron discovers she can freeze the creatures using an ancient Nephilim phrase she remembers from Aunt Nell. During the escape, Jericho regains his wings, but Dryston follows. After a brutal aerial battle and chase, they return to Blackwater where Jericho kills Dryston using Remy's Mercy Blade. However, Jericho is suddenly struck down by a sentinel and bursts into flames, leaving only ashes, and Farron, now pregnant, alone with vengeance burning inside her. In Chapter 64, Farron stands at the edge of the pier, overwhelmed by grief after Jericho's death. She contemplates ending her life, drawn to the still black water and the imagined flames reflected on its surface. A haunting vision of Jericho's voice and face stops her just in time. Realizing she might be carrying his child, she steps back from the edge, determined not to give up. Holding the coin Barshiel once gave her, she boards a shadowy ferry to return to the mortal realm. The ferryman, dressed in a black robe, accepts the coin and allows her aboard. Among the other silent passengers, Farron notices a familiar book beside her, The Baron and the Witch's Daughter. Inside the book, she finds the very same coin she had given the ferryman, returned mysteriously. As the ferry departs, she clutches the book to her chest, carrying her grief, her resolve, and possibly Jericho's child into what comes next. In Chapter 65, 3 months have passed since Jericho's death. Farron, desperate to bring him back, scours her father's journals but finds no clear method. Only a cryptic sigil from the ancient Prescutian language linked to ex nihilo. Needing help, she returns to Shiphius, who initially refuses but changes his mind when she reveals she carries Jericho's child. Inside, she offers him a rare coin from the ferry in exchange for answers. Shiphius reveals the sigil means creation from nothing and is tied to forbidden resurrection magic. However, only angels can translate its true meaning, and he advises her to find one. Farron learns she may be the reincarnation of Lestina, whose father could be an angel. This ancestry might allow her to summon him, but she must first discover his name, starting with the name of Lestina's mother. Despite the overwhelming odds, Farron resolves to continue, determined to bring Jericho back. In Chapter 66, Farron spends a week obsessively searching for the name of Lestina's mother to summon the angel who might help her bring Jericho back. After repeated dead ends, a memory surfaces of a woman with red hair, Katrina, who gave her a book. Farron remembers a past life vision of dancing with Katrina, who claimed to be the daughter of the Earl of Kildare. Researching this, she discovers a historical paper linking Katrina to a mysterious disappearance alongside a condemned man named Sialak O'Ruarc. Believing him to be the angel, Farron brings the name to Shiphius. Using a scrying mirror, he locates the angel, now living as Gabriel Angelus in Tempest Cove. Confirming the name through a local newspaper article, Farron is filled with renewed hope that she may find him. Shiphius warns the journey is risky, but the vision in the mirror offers her the first tangible lead in her mission to resurrect Jericho. In Chapter 67, Farron arrives at the shoal in Tempest Cove after a long drive from Chicago, seeking Gabriel Angelus, who is revealed to be Lestina's father, and a centuries-old archangel disguised as a human. She struggles with anxiety and the implications of her pregnancy, feeling the baby's movement whenever she thinks of Jericho. Farron confronts Gabriel, revealing her identity as Lestina reborn and requesting his help to translate the Pentacrux sigil, essential to rescuing Jericho from ex nihilo. Initially dismissive and skeptical, Gabriel resists, citing the dangers and impossibility of bringing someone back from ex nihilo. But Farron convinces him by invoking the urgency of Jericho's life and the historical significance of the sigil. When she mentions Bishop Venable, Katrina's killer, Gabriel agrees to translate the sigil in exchange for the location of Venable, despite the act being a violation of heavenly laws. Farron commits, accepting the risk to her soul. In Chapter 68, Jericho returns to Farron after she performed the ritual Gabriel translated, but he is in shock, trembling, and emits electrical sparks, making him initially untouchable. Farron guides him into a warm shower, helping him regain some strength while observing his burn wounds healing. She finds clothing for him, and Jericho struggles with the loss of his wings, which he cannot summon. They share a passionate reunion, acknowledging the sacrifices each made. Farron damned her soul to bring him back, and Jericho gave up his wings. They reconnect intimately, sharing both physical and emotional closeness, affirming their enduring love. They discuss the dangers they face from the Sentinels once Farron becomes a Cambion, and Jericho reassures her he can still protect them via the angelic current within him, even without his wings. Together, they resolve to return to Nightshade to find Farron's father, who may restore Jericho's wings despite the risks of crossing planes.